Hello, everybody, and welcome to Podfluxxx, episode number 52. And you know us. I'm Kevin Fulton, that's Ricky Reyes, and we are the RC Cola of professional wrestling. This has been a wild week, a lot of idiocy, a lot of things that were supposed to be really good. And well, they just weren't on both sides of the coin. So before we jump into any of that, how are you?
I'm doing good. Just living the dream.
All right. Which company's idiocy would you like to start with tonight?
I,
There's a
I,
lot more in one cup than there
I
is.
was, I was gonna say the easier and quicker one would be to go with the Vinceless WWE, I guess.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to bring up was it showed, or I think Brandon Thurston reported on Nick Khan has his stocks up for sale but not sold them. Right? Is that what I got?
Yes.
Okay, because what was that, yesterday morning or something, where everybody was reporting that he sold all his stock. It said Vince and Nick Khan, but he just has them out there, right?
Yeah. Nick Khan's, I believe, is trying to sell his. Vince
Oh,
McMahon's stock is gone.
it's gone, right?
He has sold like $2 billion worth of his TKO stock, which
Right.
has fueled the rumor fire that he's going to attempt to buy AEW because some guy that writes for Forbes uh,
Oh, that's right.
did a value
Claimed they were worth 2 billion, right? Which they are not. Yeah.
right, because if you know who made the point was, I don't know if you listened to last week's Cornet podcast, but his co-host Brian Last was
Mm,
like, the video library, what's it worth? He was like, your office staff there, who are your executives in this office?
right.
Are they worth keeping? Are they worth not worth keeping?
Right.
What here makes any of this worth $1 billion? The video game is half complete. It's on sale for $10 at Walmart. There are more people playing a 5-year-old version of WWE 2K online than there are playing the AEW uh,
Right.
video game. He was like, there's
Yeah.
not one department here of
Yeah.
AEW that has value.
Uh, yeah, the 2 billion number, that's just, is that including debt, like, that they
Right.
have to pay out? I mean, then maybe they're close to 1 billion, but there's no way that place is worth $2 billion at all.
Like, is there somebody out there with, that kind of fuck money that would be like, oh, I'll drop 2 billion? The only person who's gonna value and spend $2 billion on a company like AEW is going to be another Tony Khan type, where they just want to be in the wrestling business and actually making the money off of your money doesn't matter. I don't know how many billionaires there are out there like that.
Probably slim to none. There's no way. No. First off, nobody would buy it for 2 billion. And it's funny how, like, everyone's saying and claiming that Vince is going to start another wrestling company, which he is not. I mean, I don't know him like that, but I couldn't imagine he would ever. And I don't see him buying AEW just for what, to be a lesser, competitor for WWE.
Right.
Like, it doesn't make any sense.
Well,
So
the really, like, the biggest comeback on Vince going to start a new wrestling company, like, where the legitimacy of that stops, is who would work for him.
right. Well, that's what I mean. Like, if there are any big stars out there to help, build a company, they are in AEW, right? And
Right.
like they're just, you know, I don't know.
Even beyond that, if this wasn't a guaranteed contract type of
mm,
business like it is right
yeah,
now, who is going to risk their reputation going to work, for Vince McMahon right now, who is currently, nuclear. You know what I
yeah,
mean?
yeah,
You're
yeah,
that's you're destroying your own reputation if you're gonna be like, oh, I'm gonna go jump in bed. Pardon a terrible line there, but like, I'm
right,
gonna go jump in
yeah,
there with Vince McMahon. You're poison.
right,
You're basically saying I love rape
yeah,
and
yeah,
head shit. So,
yeah.
but anyway, uh, the WWE, they presented us on SmackDown with night one of the draft, uh, which coincidentally this year coincided with the actual NFL draft. Do you know the difference between the two drafts?
No,
It's a good because it's a trick question. Uh, one of them is real, and B, the same one that is real takes people from places where they just weren't and brings them to some place that they have not been.
correct. Yes,
Um, the first night of the WWE draft did not really accomplish that. Would you like
I
to go through
noticed.
the first few rounds here?
Just any highlights. I don't want to go through all of it, but like I saw a lot of people, quote unquote, drafted to SmackDown that were currently already in that dressing room and
Right.
not going anywhere else.
Well,
So,
SmackDown uh, spent their first pick on Bianca Belair. She already works there. Raw's first pick was Jey Uso. Guess where he already works? Okay. So the third pick was Carmelo Hayes to SmackDown.
yeah, I saw that.
There were four picks in that round, and he was the only pick that actually went somewhere that he's currently not. In the second round, Braun Breaker got drafted to Raw. So
Okay, so that's a change, right? He
yeah,
was on
yeah,
SmackDown.
that's an actual factual move. And Nia Jax, the seventh pick, got drafted to SmackDown.
Lucky them.
Right. Um, the Bloodline, this is interesting. The Bloodline is drafted to SmackDown, but it's only listed as Solo, Tama, and Paul Heyman.
Yes, and then another thing I wanted to bring up or talk about was the champions stayed on their brands,
Yeah,
right?
they're protected.
Okay. Okay. So
And then,
that was something that we had touched on last week, I think, kind of trying to figure out how they work that. What was it a couple of years ago where Becky and Charlotte just traded belts?
yes, and it was like the weirdest shit ever.
I
Like, there's
don't know. I don't know why that makes me laugh. Every time I think about it, I like, you take the red one, I'll take the blue one now.
yeah.
Like, what the fuck just happened?
And anybody who's like trying to be a legitimate historian
Yeah.
on the modern pro wrestling, like that just fucked them all up.
Yeah, their brains just exploded.
Another interesting note here was Raw drafted a female named Kiana James, who I guess is from NXT, but I've never seen.
Okay.
And they also drafted Chad Gable to Raw, but the entire Alpha Academy is still with him. So they're picked as a group. So it's basically what I'm going on about right now is that they're still keeping Chad Gable with Otis, Akira Tozawa, and the blonde headed chick. So they did this finish on Raw a couple of weeks ago, or last week, whatever, with Sammy and Chad. I'm sure you saw that where he got the heat on him after
Yeah.
the match and he made
Yeah.
the heel turn. So we got
Yes.
super duper serious Chad
Yeah.
Gable heel right now. but you're showing me a graphic that he's still part of this goofy ass Alpha Academy.
And didn't he wasn't he out there like in a suit belittling everybody the next day or the next week?
You know what? I didn't see, like I was telling you last week, I didn't really see much of Raw, so I'm sure.
Yeah, no, because he just was like he was really great on the mic, which I was excited for as a heel, and he just went one by one and just ripped on everybody. So I thought that they were no longer a
But so,
group, or at least he wasn't a part of it because he just shit on everybody, and that was it.
yeah, but then they all got drafted together, which is weird.
Okay.
So, so where you at on this draft so far? Is it even worth doing like a thing like this, or should they just be like, maybe just randomly like how they used to pick Royal Rumble spots? You know what I mean? Fucking ball in the cage and the roller.
Yeah. Um, Here's the thing. I feel like it should be done more with the general managers. Like that should be the focus. I just still don't understand what the point in having the general managers that you do have that can talk really well and present themselves like $1 million, and you're not utilizing them. Like again, going back to when Triple H came out and said, "Oh, I'm head of creative," and he had both general managers behind him. They're just holding their dicks. Like, now what? Like, they're actually the head. Like, that was the point of having general managers. But anyways, uh, yeah, I don't know. It feels forced and dumb. I take it that SmackDown, uh, they weren't there wasn't going to be any groundbreaking stuff because I'm hoping they're trying to use the groundbreaking drafts for Monday to keep Monday Night Raw interesting.
Right.
Uh, at least I'm hopeful for that because there was really, I mean, I saw a bunch of names. Was Punk drafted to one or the other yet? Do you recall?
No, I've got a list in front of me, and
Uh,
CM Punk
El-
wasn't on it. The biggest names in this, I think, so far were, Braun Breaker, Seth Rollins stays on Raw.
yeah,
Basically, they announced a lot of like where their already top people
yeah,
are staying, where they're going.
yeah. Which tells me that they like what they have, so
Hmm.
they're not changing it. So what was the point in the draft at all,
Right.
right? So you could have had debates or contract negotiations with the two GMs to get the mid card lower guys, or to make a major bid for a major player like Braun Breaker and make that its own thing,
Yeah.
like where they're trying for weeks and weeks and weeks to see what they can do, and make that such a big deal that when Braun Breaker shows up on Raw, it's like, finally he's here, fuck yeah, and then another amazing debut for him. Instead, they just randomly shuffled him over, and here we are.
And they could do something where they can be like each general manager selects five people that are safe. You know what I mean? That way
Yeah,
we don't have to see you waste a draft pick.
on
Um,
a guy who's already there, right?
yes, I don't need
Yeah,
to know that you're using your second pick on Seth Rollins, who's hurt and he's not going to be on TV for X amount of months or whatever you're doing.
yeah. This could be done way way better, and making. I just feel like I personally felt like if Braun Breaker wasn't going to be the number one choice going to Raw, that would have been a major, like,
Hmm.
oh shit. Like, remember when Cena got drafted to maybe SmackDown or whatever, like first, like that was a huge thing. You should just do what we did for John is what we're gonna do for Braun. Like, um, I would have did that. If he ended up changing and they didn't make a huge deal about it, then they missed the boat on something. I'm sure he's clearly intelligent enough to know to get himself over. Like, he's getting himself over as well, which is great. But they really should have made it a major issue to get him from one color to the other, because he's going to be the guy in a few years. You know.
Um, You know what? I'm not gonna transition yet because just speaking of colors is a bad transition. But before we
Or is it?
go there, did you see the Cody Rhodes Carmelo Hayes clip that's been going around?
Yeah.
I gotta
Yeah.
ask you, botch or planned?
Completely botched, obviously. I wrestled Carmelo before he went to NXT. Um, he's maybe from Connecticut or something like that, or he's a
Mm,
Northeast guy. But anyways, super, super talented, obviously. And he just loves it, like he's one of those guys, like I'm glad that they're take their time with them, let him develop as much as he could with Sean, and then send him up, because he's one of those guys that, I mean, he asks a ton of questions and they're all the good questions.
right.
So he'll be a major, major player in the next few years. But yeah, I didn't like it because it just wasn't realistic. I know what they were going for, right? The air cutter,
Yeah.
but catching them out of the air. But that was way too high risk for very little reward. Um, and then, I saw that when they announced the match, I saw a bunch of people saying like, "Oh, it'll be a DQ. AJ will interfere. It keeps everybody strong." But the thing is the only person that needs to come out strong out of that match is Cody,
Right.
because he's the champ, he's the man. Um, Mello losing to him doesn't do anything bad. His performance and the fact that he could keep up with the champ is going to make him look good. Yeah.
Do you think Cody gave Melo too much?
Yeah. Yeah. A
So
lot of the clips that I saw was, and here's what Cody's probably thinking, right? Let me shine up the new kid, right? This is all inclusive. You can be a top guy too, and again, I will, till the day I end, bark up the whole, you got to keep yourself strong, you got to keep yourself over, you got to speak up. Here's where it makes sense, you can get a little bit of this, and then, 1 2 3, we're out, and dragging him up, at the end of the match, he's beat, you don't have to shake hands and make out. But even if Cody just pulled him up, gave him the nod, like, I'll see you down the road type of thing, and then walked out and let Mello, the ovation from the crowd for the effort, I always feel like I always look back to, remember that Bret Hart 1 2 3 Kid match on
yeah,
Monday Night Raw? Okay. Like when he takes that first arm drag and Bret slides over by the camera and he goes like,
yeah,
that was me, like, wow, like he kept up, he can keep up with Bret, like he did that to Bret, little things like that throughout the match would have meant more than trying to make some spectacular, you know, not realistic type finish for no reason, on a throwaway match on TV, So I thought the match should have been a little bit more lopsided. You could have did the whole Cody trying to, rile him up. Come on, kid. And then Mello come with a big comeback. Here's your kid. I got your kid right here. Boom, boom, boom. Mello going for it. Mello could have unloaded his whole arsenal on the champ, and Cody could have just barely been kicking out. That would have got Mello over, where you got to see everything. Like, holy shit! Like, this guy can do these two or three huge things that Carmelo can really hit. Would have been great. And then a barrage of Cody, and then boom, 1 2 3, we're out.
right.
But yeah, I mean, I get what they're doing. I clearly know the mindset, but I really wish Triple H would have been like, well, that's nice, but it's his first day here, so let's
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 pump the brakes here a little bit.
Yeah, he didn't need to escape out of everything. He didn't try, he didn't need to answer Cody every which way. It could have been a lot of Cody kind of like, like come on, come up, like kind of egging him to fight on, But I mean, I get it, but it's a lost match in on TV, right? So it's not going to be talked about anymore. So
See, I thought the spot, the botch spot, obviously, for anybody who hasn't seen it, they with their backs to each other went for a springboard each on a different side of the ring, and Cody was going to be looking for the Cody Cutter. I thought just because of how bad it was mistimed, where Mello landed first and then Cody on
yeah,
the side of him. I thought that they were going for like we both got the same idea kind of a thing, where they
oh
both kind of ate shit there, because I couldn't see how Cody, how the timing on that can be that off with Cody looking at the screen. You know what I'm saying?
yeah,
Like he had to have been able to see the exact uh, placement and timing there with the Tron in front of him, and you'd think a spot where you're coming, where you're flying back first into each other, you've got to be going into a spot like that with zero, knowing you have zero chance of pulling off what you're attempting to pull off, because how?
yeah. Another thing too is Cody. If you're looking at it on television, Cody was far more closer to Mello's ropes than he was his ropes.
Yeah,
So I think Mello only had to take one step, hop. That's why he was there like a whole second and a half first,
before,
right? Because I think Cody took two steps, and then by the time he was even on the middle rope, I think Mello was already launched off.
yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, it was bad.
It was like when we used to do that drop
Yep,
down drill.
yep, yep. That's
You know,
exactly what I envisioned when I saw it. Yeah.
yeah, I was like, oh, that's a clever take on the drop down
Yeah.
drill.
Yeah, it was badly. Maybe they thought or were under the impression that they would be more centered
Right.
when so. But it's goofy because they're just kind of standing there and then they're like go,
Yeah.
It's like,
Or that yeah, the whole thing was just whether whether they botched the spot or they called, hey, what if we, it's like, a double clothesline kind of a deal. Like
yeah,
they just picked a bad spot to call there
yeah,
to
yeah. It was
begin
not.
with. Speaking of bad spots, are you ready to move on?
Yep.
We're going to go and move on to the Wednesday night swerve. So we were doing our Dynasty recap while Dynamite was airing last week.
Right.
And we kind of mentioned it, but kind of blew by it, that Swerve Strickland did not get a celebration, right? He didn't get a promo segment on Wednesday after winning the world title on Sunday. He got a cold eliminator match with Kyle Fletcher. Now, later on in the show, Willow Nightingale got a celebration for winning the TBS championship.
What?
Okay? And John Moxley went on to main event the show with Willie Hobbs for the IWGP Heavyweight Championship, which kind of answered my question right there of which title they're going to treat more importantly. But the reason being given was that for Saturday's Collision, coming out of the NFL draft and the NBA playoffs on TNT or TBS, whatever it is, that there were going to be 4 million people potentially to have eyeballs on AEW at 8:30 on a Saturday night, and there we're going to start the show off there with Swerve.
Okay.
As somebody with 25 years in the professional wrestling industry, is one person able to cut more than one promo? Why not let him talk Wednesday and then let him talk on Saturday?
Because it's AEW. Honestly, what I would have done was announce on Dynamite that he wasn't there and that Swerve was going to be opening the show Saturday. What was the point in having him do a cold match for nothing with a show that already has the another world title match, because everyone gets a world title in AEW.
Right.
Another world title match headlining it, right? So you're kind of just mudding up your own waters, I would think. Why have Swerve on that show at all? What was the point in having him on Wednesday to do basically nothing his first day as the champion?
Well, he did way more than nothing. He had a 15-minute competitive match with, granted, a talented, but underneath guy, one of your ROH TV champion, I think, Kyle.
Yeah, I was gonna say he's not even the top. He's not even the number 2 guy in your own company. He's the number 2 guy in your third brand. Like, what's the point?
Right.
But that's what I'm saying. Like we got Swerve walking down the ramp for the first time with the world title for nothing. Instead, you could have opened the show announcing that on Collision, the world champion Shane Strickland, Swerve was going to be live in the ring on Saturday, and we're going to hear from the champ for the first time or something along those lines.
I may have buried the lead on you here. Do you know how the show opened on Wednesday?
No.
Orange Cassidy's music hits. Okay.
All right.
He gets rolled out of the tunnel with his t-shirt ripped, and Trent Beretta is beating the shit out of him. He brings him into the ring, starts kicking the crap out of him even more, and then Chuck Taylor comes out, right? And then Trent Beretta's like, listen, Chuck. He's like, this guy here is a pile of shit, and he treats us poorly. He's like, you are my best friend, man. I do love you. So are you with me or not? And then Chuck Taylor calls Trent a piece of shit and hits him with the microphone. So Chuck Taylor got promo time on this show, and he was just like leaking autism. You know what I mean? And he got a promo time, and he challenged him to a parking lot street fight, which was going to be on Rampage. So it was important to get this angle in, but for our brand new World Heavyweight Champion / first ever Black AEW World Heavyweight Champion, less important for him to speak, because he's going to be speaking on Saturday. What are they doing here?
Nothing right is what they're doing. I don't know. I don't even know. Like, I can't comment on any of that best friends bullshit because it's all garbage from start to finish. Period. Like, we're fighting over who's going to be your best friend. So typical AEW. Yeah. On that note, I wanted to bring up. I was thinking about it earlier. Like, there's been, since AEW's existence, I would say maybe like 2 or 3 times, I think, where I was curious what they were going to do on Dynamite because they had something going, whether it was a pay-per-view the week before or something where even we talked about, like, I'm actually looking forward to see, X, Y, and Z. And I can't believe how they drop the ball so consistently. It is.
Yeah.
I don't even know. Like, I really wish I was like fly on the wall while they're sitting around the desk talking about, what we should do, because we need some Orange Cassidy, and God knows Chuck Taylor, whatever his name is.
Scott Taylor.
Yeah, he was actually good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like, really, like, I just don't get it, man. Like, what are they doing?
Well, I'll tell you what they are doing. Ricky, have you seen? I'm sure you have, right?
Of course I have.
But what in the actual factual fuck are these people doing? I'm sorry, I need to whisper a little bit because I tend to get wound up. My kids are trying to sleep, and this is just gonna be profanity laced. So, but okay, they bring out Jungle Boy, right?
Yes. Right.
And he nudges Tony Khan in the stomach with a microphone, and
Barely. Yes.
Tony
Takes a
Khan
bump.
takes a bump like he was hit by a goddamn wrecking ball, right?
Yes. Yeah. It looked like Okada hit him in the face with his drop kick. He took that bump.
Yeah. I mean, he could have just doubled over and been like,
Which,
right?
correct.
But
Yeah.
he went flat like somebody hit him with an invisible wall.
Right.
He
Yes.
couldn't see it, but they swung it at him.
Right.
Um,
Now, real quick, on this particular, the shot heard round the world and in Tony's tummy, right? The thing that bothers me the most is guys like that have been in the same position, right? Let's say owner, president, whatever, GM, right? Or just lackey that has to take a shot live on camera. Okay. You've seen Vince McMahon get headbutted in the face full on.
Yep.
He's taking a ladder to the dome with no hands up. You've seen Eric Bischoff get jackknife powerbomb from a stage to the floor off Kevin Nash's shoulders. Let's stop and take a second to imagine, okay, getting powerbombed and then getting powerbombed in that scenario when Eric Bischoff's never been powerbombed prior to that, right? So think about what he's feeling, right? And then think about just a few weeks ago, we had Becky Lynch socked Dominic right in the fucking jaw, as plain as day, where Dominic was like, yes, try to knock my porn mustache off my face as clearly as possible, right? You mean to tell me Tony Khan, I mean, if I'm the heel hitting Tony Khan, I'm gonna walk up to him and say, I'm gonna punch you in the fucking stomach.
With a microphone.
Well, yeah, I wouldn't have did it with the microphone.
Right.
I would have said, I'm gonna punch you in the fucking stomach. I'm sorry now for what's gonna happen later.
Right.
But business is business. We'll get past it. So they faked the punch, they faked the bump, they faked everything, and then this idiot fakes it all the way to the next day live on news. It's insane.
Before we get there.
Yeah, before we get there. I'm just saying, but what I'm saying is everybody else was willing to take the shot for what's best, right?
Right.
I mean, think about that for a second. Eric Bischoff being power bombed backwards. I mean, just think about that, how that must feel when you're just waiting for a fucking table to come crashing on your head.
Now,
like,
there's a variable here, right? With Eric Bischoff, it was Kevin Nash. Vince
Yes.
McMahon at 74 years old getting headbutted and opened up hard way. Kevin Owens,
Yeah.
right? Tony Khan getting punched in the stomach. Jack Perry, right?
That's what I'm saying. Like you couldn't take a stiff shot.
I don't think he
Like
could throw a stiff shot, is what I'm
well,
saying.
that's what that would have been even better. Like, come on, Jack. I'd have been egging him on all day. Like,
Yeah.
like you're a
Yeah.
little bitch. Like,
There's the problem with wrestling today is there aren't enough people like me and you and all these guys here. Like we've
yeah.
been like, hey man, let him have it. Let him, like,
Oh, are you kidding me? Hell
yeah,
yeah.
I'll give
I'd
you
have been
one day off
like,
tonight.
did you see Anna Jay was in Tony's office earlier? I don't know what was going on there, bro.
You gotta get a raise somehow.
You got a free shot tonight, though.
But yeah, I just like, and then they ended up doing the Meltzer driver, and Tony laid dead, and
Yeah,
it took them. The problem with AEW is like, listen, this wasn't great. This could have been a very good angle,
it should have been awesome. Yes,
but they can always kill a really good angle in
yes,
less than 5 minutes
yes,
because that should have been a stretcher ride for Tony Khan, right?
absolutely.
Not
That
a
would have
walk
been it.
out on his own power. And if he had to walk out on his own power because he was going to definitely be on TV for the NFL draft tomorrow or whatever, then they should have done it next week.
Yep.
It wouldn't have hurt to wait one more week. But now this dipshit, he gets up, he walks out with help. He's on the draft in a neck brace. Kudos to him for halfway committing.
Right.
You know what I mean? But then he goes on the NFL Network. Uh,
Yes, he did.
are you familiar
Oh,
with his quote on the NFL Network?
I am. I loved how uncomfortable the other two guys got. They wanted to wrap that up so fast.
Well, first of all, they were laughing at him and not laughing with him.
Oh, for sure, for sure.
And anybody who thinks otherwise
Oh God.
needs to go have a chromosome count because
Yeah.
um, it was blatantly obvious. Ricky, why can't these people, when they're in any type of position to promote themselves, help but take the shot at WWE? Now, listen, I know Eric Bischoff did a lot of swinging up at Vince McMahon in the 90s on his TV show. How'd that work out for Eric?
Right. Right.
So, at what point do you need to stop promoting them while you're given the opportunity to promote yourself?
Well, that's the problem, right? I mean, every week, whatever happens on Twitter, they seem to want to try to play out on their television show. And just knowing a little bit that I do of the Bucks and those guys, like they're notorious for this will be funny, but it's only funny to them,
Right.
And now they have a platform that they're doing their funny stuff for them in front of everybody. And this is why it's not working. That is the first thing. The second thing is they're just playing wrestlers. They're not actually pro wrestlers,
Right.
because they're more concerned about the haha of what we can do than, like Punk said, trying to draw money. Um, it's just different. Like, I don't know. It blows my mind. It's disappointing. Like they disappoint me every chance they get, because when I think, man, it would be really, really cool to wake up tomorrow and see that they turned this thing, or at least started to turn it around, or maybe took a step to turn it around. It's like, according to their fans, that pay-per-view was what they wanted, right? Really good, solid matches up and down. The champion, the right guy won, the title. You would have thought, man, this is momentum, right? I looked at it after reading all about it and seeing everything. I thought, okay, it's not what I like, but I know that's what they like. Even, as a wrestler, you have to know your audience, and that's why we listen to the audience, and then we make adjustments accordingly throughout the match. But I know that that's the style of wrestling that those guys like. You would have thought, hey, this pay-per-view gave the fans everything they wanted. So Wednesday should be a continuation of that, and
Well,
and
Dynasty, the pay-per-view that they are all screaming and was the best pay-per-view of the year of all time, whatever. I thought it was a good pay-per-view, but apparently it only did 122,000 buys, which if you look is and that's on both TV and streaming platforms. And apparently compared to Revolution in March, that was down by over 41% on TV and 30% on streaming services. So this is this looks like it might be one of their worst selling pay-per-views yet.
yeah, but that's because they don't make the fans wait for those style matches. They do 9 or 10 of them a week.
Yeah.
So when you do see Bryan and Ospreay, you're kind of already tired of that style of things happening, and
Wish that something happened that you could have sunk your teeth into to get to that.
to make you interested in it, right? But they didn't. They think, oh, we don't have to do it like the old guys. We're going to do it our own way. There's a reason why the old guys did it that way, and why WWE is doing it that way today. It's because it works.
Right.
I always hate when I used to call a spot to somebody, like grab them by their trunks, and pull and shit can them outside, and they're like, oh yeah, the old shit can. Yeah, bitch, because it works. The crowd understands it. This is pro wrestling. Like, this is what we're doing. It's not an old thing just because Fez invented it. It's an old thing because it's constantly used, because it works. The same thing, good guy versus bad guy. Again, like, who was the bad guy in the Ospreay match, and why? What made him the bad guy? There's none of that, right? Like, there just isn't. And there goes that argument of, that emotional detachment when there's just two good guys going in there doing things for the sake of doing things, which is the Ospreay Ricochet match. I said it before, like, if Ricochet would have took over at some point and got mad at Ospreay for trying to come outclass him and out move him, then we would have had something to be a little emotionally invested in. But they didn't. They just said, you do one, I'll do one, we'll take our turns, and then that's it. And that's how this whole company works. It's ridiculous.
I want to move on to last night's Collision, but before we do that, you seen Twitter at all today?
I saw he was trending. I didn't know what for, but
they released you've seen his YouTube clips, how they have the funny art.
Oh, the Strickland with the monkey, or that's what it was for? Oh.
Yeah. So,
okay, I saw somebody saying something about it. I didn't know that's why.
Yeah, everybody's up in arms because
he doesn't make that.
Well, not even that. If anybody took the 6 minutes and 30 seconds to listen to the clip,
right.
He compared, he was like, and here we are, Swerve Strickland for the Mighty Joe Young or the Cheetah segment of the program, where he's gonna take a job guy and treat him like he's Hulk Hogan or whatever the fuck. Basically saying that he was letting Kyle Fletcher bow up on him like Mighty Joe Young in the clip. And it was a passing statement, like he didn't spend any time on it, like it came out of his mouth, and then within a second it was over. And
Oh, I love it.
people on Twitter are losing their absolute goddamn mind. So I just wanted to see if you saw that because I
Yeah.
thought it was hysterical. And if anything, they're kind of showing themselves by looking at a picture of a black guy next to a picture of a gorilla, and they're making that connection, which is absurd. But to blame somebody else for what they're seeing
Right. Exactly.
is ridiculous. So we're gonna go right past that, and then we're gonna go to the Saturday Swerve.
Okay.
Do you remember that number that I said before about how many people could possibly be watching Collision for Swerve's promo?
4 million.
Right. So there's
Okay.
no official ratings right now, but there is a guy who writes a column for Forbes, and he tweeted today that AEW broke its neck with a picture of Tony Khan in a neck brace, trying to pop a rating, but Fast Nationals fell under 500,000 amid the NBA lead-in. So apparently, what he's saying is that it's going to be under 500,000, and Rampage is looking like 253,000. And they were supposed to be live coast to coast, like a 3 hour block. Also, funny to mention that my DVR, which is set to record Collision, started recording at 8:30 because I guess that was the time that it was supposed to start after the NBA game.
Yeah.
But apparently 8:30 was like 3 minutes too late for the first 3 minutes of the Swerve Strickland promo.
Oh.
So there's there's that. So they can't get their shows timed to end properly, to start properly. And it started with a Swerve promo with an open challenge that was answered by Claudio. And the main event of Collision last night was Swerve versus Claudio. And I just watched it, and it looked like it was a pretty good match. So, with them thinking they're getting this number and holding off Swerve to it, and then by what I'm seeing here, not getting this number, how much worse does it hurt now that they did on Wednesday with Swerve that what they did?
It. I mean, it hurts tremendously, right? I mean, they like nothing that they plan out or think is going to happen ever does. Uh, I don't know, man. Like, how do you fix any of this? I mean, it's funny. Did you hear Eric Bischoff and Bully Ray on his new show?
No, I missed it. How was that?
Please go and watch it. It's only an hour or so. Bully Ray. I met Bully Ray in Connecticut. I was training a school up there, and he came in to, like, I guess he was teaching on other days. Anyways, he stopped us for like a second to touch on something that I had said. Uh, and then he's like, okay, sorry to interrupt or whatever. And I was like, no, please keep going. He is so smart. It's insane. Right. Well, he said, and I didn't even think about it, and I don't know if you thought about it. Who do you give the book to in AEW? Because if 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 all the greats have sat under a certain learning tree, right? And all the greats have learned from, like, if you ask Jim Ross, and he's learned from Bill Watts and Pat Patterson and Vince back when he had a brain, and guys like that, right? He said, and it blew my mind, he was like, you hand the book over to Dustin Rhodes. And I was like, holy shit. And it's just because you never see him on TV, or he's never really promoting anything, but he's the son of the guy who's like, you know, like what better learning tree? You
Yeah.
know, who's going to have the better ideas or have heard better stories or have been around
Long
the
enough to know what works.
yeah, been around the minds and in that time because of how old he is, to have seen it like go from good to bad back to good again, you know. um I don't know. Anyways, I really have been thinking about that ever since I heard that and thought, man, like, I wonder if, like, I guess I'll take them a little more serious when they do that. Like, you know, do something like that. Because right now, if this is all Tony Khan and the Young Bucks still, this is why it is the way it is, you
Yeah.
know? And there's no logic to anything because they don't know how to do that. They went, I remember one of the Young Bucks' very first matches at PWG. Uh, it was on the same show was me and Rocky against Jay and Mark Briscoe, and it was the first time in this, like, it was kind of like a basketball gym building, and I'll never forget. The Briscoes got in late because of their flight, and we were on third. I'll never forget. But the Bucks were out there doing a dark match, and they were doing everything, right? And it's a dark match. So the crowd's popping, popping, pop, you know. And I remember I told, I don't know, Super Dragon or one of the nerds that run it. And I said, hey, is there any way we can get pushed back because Jay and Mark still aren't here? And the show's starting, right? And they gave me some lame excuse of like, no, we can't. Like, this is the lineup. And I'm like, all right, dude, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. You know, I'm more concerned about Jay and Mark
Actually getting there.
And warming up. That was my fucking concern, right?
Right.
Was the guys that that if I were in their shoes, I would have hoped that they would have been like, "Hey, bro, let these guys get in here and get warmed the fuck up. Let them get their gear on correctly, so we don't go out there and hurt ourselves." Right? That's what I'm fucking worried about. But instead, we got these fucking dipshit nerds out here doing every goddamn fucking move, flipping around, acting like they can't make match 3, match 4. You know what I mean? Like, throw an interview segment in there for 10 minutes, if that, and give us some time, right? Let the guys fucking get off the fucking plane and, stretch out their hamstrings. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So any fucking way. Anyways, we go out and fucking tear the best match any of us ever had with each other, right? And it was so funny because we come back and I remember Jay was like, man, that felt good. And I was like, yeah, like we were all like hugging each other and everything because it just was like one of those nights where it was just because we had nothing to remember, we had nothing to mess up, right? So we just went out and just fucking tore it up, and I just remember that being like a thing where I thought, man, like these guys, they just want to play wrestling. You know what I mean? Like all of them, and the Bucks are part of that,
Mm-hmm.
It's just, bro, they are going to run this place into the ground and it's going to be nothing again. It's going to be WWE, although WWE is better, right? But it's still, you got one place to go, and that's it.
Well, they've further drove this angle into the ground by having Tony Schiavone doing it on camera and saying that Tony Khan is okay, but he's not medically cleared to travel. So then Nigel is like, well, what happens if there's a situation on the road that needs authority? And then he was like, I guess the EVPs will have to be in charge. So they're already, you know,
Okay.
they're just shooting this whole.
Yeah.
They poorly shot a good angle, and then within 5 minutes into the next 3 days, have made sure that they made it completely unbelievable. And people on the internet are like, well, how come anybody who's been around a long time hates AEW or criticizes AEW? And it's like, because we've been watching wrestling more than most AEW fans have been alive,
Right.
and we know what it's supposed to be and what it's supposed to look like and sound
To
like. And
be successful, right? Like to grow, right? I mean, and then did you see the numbers for Dynamite?
yes,
I mean, how how do you come off what their fans think is one of their best pay-per-views, regardless of the numbers, right? You're talking about 7-star matches, all this other bullshit that they nut off to, right? The next Wednesday, they don't even want to tune in to see what the fuck is happening,
right.
or immediately tune out once they do see what's happening, which is even worse.
I feel like AEW would be better off on YouTube than on a
Yes.
television network because their fan base, if you look at any pattern of the numbers, right? They've got, let's be realistic. They've got 700,000 people in that area watching the show. Which, by
Yes.
the way, if you go back in time 4 years, their ratings are the same exact ratings that their entire fan base and their roster was dunking on NXT for getting when they were head to head,
Right.
right?
Yep.
Now they're gatekeeping this number like it's something to behold. But anyway, they if you look at the trends, they only watch what they want to see.
Yes.
They don't watch the show, start to finish. This is a
Right.
clip audience.
Yes.
I only
Absolutely.
want to see this. So they tune in for that and then they bail.
Then they're done.
And
Yeah.
yeah.
Yep.
And so it's funny, like this is an internet nerd show
Yes.
that should be on the internet because the platform that they're on uh doesn't suit them.
No. Yeah. You're right. The Also with that, they don't know how to format a show to keep that larger audience in tune
Yep.
to make them more interested. This is how you grow. This is how you get people over. They don't know how to do those things, so they give them their quote unquote dream match, and maybe some of them come back for it, and then they just disappear because here comes two random girls from Japan that no one knows, and then that's it. Like they're done.
The thing that drives me crazy here is Tony Khan is allegedly a statistician, right? He's a guy
Okay.
who owns and operates a business that does statistics, right? He's got 5 years worth of fucking TV numbers that he can associate to people, right? So you're
Right.
telling me he doesn't have a chart that says this guy works, this guy works, this guy. He, above anybody else, should have been able to trim that roster down to 25 fucking people based on what works on your TV ratings and what doesn't, and
Right.
his money would be up and his ratings would be up. But he consistently, because he was stupid enough to give them the title of executive vice principal, president, producer, whatever, keeps putting the Bucks on TV, despite the fact that they just run 200,000 people off like it's what they're supposed to do
Every week. Yep.
every week, every
Every
time
week.
they're on TV. Every time they're on TV, this fan base that claims they love the Young Bucks changes the channel
Right.
across the board, which leaves them with like the amount of people who went to Hot Topic to buy the t-shirts 12 years ago. And
Yep.
that's it. That's it. The Young Bucks are the old Bucks and nobody cares anymore. I haven't cared since the first time I saw them in TNA when I said, oh, look at
Right.
these guys. They're ruining tag team wrestling.
Yeah.
And that's where I checked out on the Young Bucks. And anyway, I just got one more thing that I want to get to tonight. Oh, by the way, they made sure to announce where they're traveling to on Collision last night, and in case you're worried, they'll be back in Chicago on July 3rd.
Oh, thank God.
Right.
Thank God.
You know, because you gotta get back to Chicago. All right, Rick, I've got a little bit of theory time here. Okay, I'm gonna invite you to take this journey with me. So,
Oh boy.
since Tama Tonga showed up, everybody's been talking about like Bloodline 2.0 versus the OG Triple OG Bloodline, right? And I feel like that's too predictable at this point, right?
Okay.
And
Right.
people are looking at it for like a War Games situation, okay?
Yeah.
So, what if they do that angle, right? And you've got Rock, and you've got Solo, and you've got Tama, and you've got Jacob Fatu, right? That's 4 guys. And then on the other side, you've got Roman, you've got Jimmy, and you've got Jay. They're outnumbered by 1 guy, right? And who do you think the 1 guy that would walk into War Games to stand up with the Bloodline who recently acknowledged Roman Reigns would be?
The Rock?
No, he's on the other team. I'm going to say that Cody Rhodes, stay with me, aligns himself with Roman, Jimmy, and Jay. Goes into War Games, okay, against the other part of the bloodline. And based on who his father is, we know what happens the minute he walks in that cage.
That would be pretty cool.
Would that not be the greatest ploy or swerve, if you will,
Yes.
if
Yeah.
Cody goes to fight for Roman and they immediately pull the Ole Anderson on him,
Lock the cage.
lock the cage, and just beat the teetotal shit out of Cody Rhodes?
That would be good. That would be good. The funny thing is, something like that is very possible now.
Very likely.
Like, seriously, like just thinking about that, like, okay, I could see like Triple H trying to put that in motion, and Cody coming up with, different things for that. Yeah.
He's done everything else Dusty has done. You know, with Brock when he broke his arm and he told him to make it count. Like,
Yeah.
he's
And it's working. It's
yeah,
working because I forgot who said it, but Cody Rhodes, may have been Bully Ray actually. He said he's the only real baby face in pro wrestling.
yeah.
And like he really is. Like, I don't care for his wrestling style. I don't see, like, in the ring, he's not a threat. That's why it's intriguing every time he has a title match, because I believe at any time he could drop the belt.
Sure.
From a business standpoint, I'm looking at it like you keep it on him because he's the draw. But physically, him versus Gunther or him versus Braun Breaker or something like that, I could almost see a change, physically, but yeah, it's working. Whatever he's doing is working. He's smart enough, and everyone else around him is smart enough wrestling wise to keep that going.
Mm-hmm.
That would be insane to just visually like see him get in there, close the door, the lock, and everyone kind of take a second to look around. They may legitimately riot if they beat the living shit out of him.
Just think about it. All the other baby faces trying to hit the ring can't get in.
And they're crawling all over.
Samoans in there.
That's scary. And then that's like legit, like fear for someone's life situations.
Yeah, we do that shit in San Francisco.
Oh my God. I was just thinking that right as you said Samoans, I was like, do we do it? Do we burn the Cow Palace down with that? Because that could do that, bro.
There you go, book the Cow Palace, and
yeah,
that'll be that.
That's That's some good stuff right there. Yeah, that could be crazy, man. I mean, they're loading it up. They're loading it up one by one. We're seeing them debut. There's, they're letting Roman go away to learn a new hold, and when he comes back, man, that pop's gonna be insane. But he's still Roman Reigns. Like, even though he's gonna come back as a face, like he's a lot like Randy Orton, where or CM Punk, where you're kind of just waiting for him to be a bad guy, like, like so it could get real good. Huh?
Where you're waiting for the other shoe to drop?
Oh yeah, that's what I mean. Like, we all love a good, good guy, Randy Orton. Oh, he's back. He's having fun. Yeah, like I'm so happy for him. But we're all kind of waiting for that slithering fucking piece of shit, kicking people in the face. And same thing with Punk. I know he's loving being liked right now, but that shit'll get old, and he's gonna say, time to make a change here and go in this different direction. So,
how do you feel about the way that Paul Heyman's been reacting and the way that Solo and Tama have been acting on TV? Is it working on you? It's working for me.
I love it. Yeah. You know what? It doesn't feel less than now to me. And that's what I was afraid of without having Roman around, or without having him, constantly being brought up, or, where we're kind of just waiting for him to come, So it's interesting. It's good story. I mean, it's a story that's continuing and it's evolving, which makes it interesting. They're not changing it for the sake of changing it. They're letting things kind of fall where they may, and then they're moving with that, which makes it good.
And then my final question here is the Solo Sikoa rise to prominence. Is that another check mark for me to put on my prediction pile, or
Yeah,
yeah,
I think you predicted it like a year or so ago,
yeah,
but it's well worth the wait. Yeah, I mean, obviously we'll see, because if they get if Tama stays strong, Solo keeps his momentum, and if Jacob actually comes and joins, I mean, who's really the leader, right? They're kind of all on the same level, which makes it even better, right?
Rich,
So,
I feel like it's important right now while establishing Tama. I feel like they need to put some type of uh, mid card singles title on Solo Sikoa. Just
yeah,
just to establish that in this new iteration of the bloodline here, who's going to be, the front man.
right.
Who's going to be front and center.
Yeah,
Maybe you don't need to put a title on him, but you just need to keep him in a dominant fashion. He needs to beat a Kevin Owens or a Randy Orton. You know
oh
what
yeah,
I mean? He
yeah,
might need to go over to Saudi Arabia and win this fucking King of the Ring or something. He's just got to have like some establishment factor. Like, I know a King of the Ring is a stupid thing, but it's something where he can show up and beat three guys in convincing fashion in one night.
yes, yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah.
that's an establishment right there.
Yeah, I mean, he does. He did beat John Cena, so I mean
Right.
that counts. But they need to keep him up there. Yeah, I get it. I don't think that he needs any of those guys. Don't need belts. I don't think, unless you're doing something to establish a team like a tag teams of some kind maybe. But yeah, um, yeah, we really haven't seen him in this role for very long. So let's see what they serve him up with, because it's got to be one of the top guys. So I definitely think so. Like he needs to beat like a Orton or somebody, or like you said, Kevin Owens, but yeah, it's still. I'm just happy that it's not bad now because
Right.
Roman's gone. That's the only thing. I didn't think.
Head in the water is huge.
Yeah, I didn't think that Paul Heyman would stick around if it was not going to be good. So luckily that, because I was thinking, does he disappear for a while and then come out of Braun Breaker's dressing room with a shitty smile one day, and then we're like, oh, Paul Heyman's got a new guy. I thought, that's kind of cheesy, but I'm glad they're sticking with it though.
All right. Well, you have anything else you want to go over tonight? Questions, comments, concerns, or thoughts?
No, that was pretty much it. We covered everything I wanted.
There you go. All right. Well, that's Ricky Reyes. I'm Kevin Fulton. Motherfuckers, we'll catch you next week. This has been episode 52 of Podfluxxx. Here's the gimmick. We're out. And